right, we're gonna do Marvin Harrison Jr.
Heard of him.
What's that? You've heard of him?
Heard of him. Big fan.
Yeah. My comp in the draft guide was like if Marvin Harrison had a tall son. That doesn't really help anyone here, so let's do something different. My high-end comp for Marvin Harrison Jr. is AJ Green. So basically, a guy who's going to come into the league, hit the ground running, put up like, I don't know, how many 1,000-yard seasons did AJ Green have? Whole bunch.
19.
And then, he had 19. I think he had, let's see here. Well, his first 5 seasons, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
6. He had 6, and his 6th of 7 seasons was 964.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of foot injuries then that tailed it off, but AJ Green actually was really way better than
he was an amazing
good ball player.
Player. And so, obviously I think that the end of his career kind of like hurt the impression that you have of him a little bit, but AJ
Cardinals Green, AJ Green? Yeah.
Right. Like he was awesome. He was really, really awesome the first 7 or 8 years of his career. So obviously I think stylistically they're similar players, like body type, they're similar players. I think the production could be similar. My mid-range one was tough because I think even if he doesn't end up being as good as we all think he's going to be, he's still going to be like a very useful, solid, a number 2 type receiver or something like that. This is the 2 comps I came up with were T. Higgins and Sidney Rice. I think T. Higgins, maybe not a true number 1 receiver in the NFL, just a very, very good number 2. Going back a couple more years, like Sidney Rice is always a very good receiver, not necessarily a superstar type player. And then my low end comp would be a guy like Laquan Treadwell or something like that. A guy who had really high expectations, but just didn't do anything in the league. Although I think he might still be in the league, or at least he was in the league.
No, he's on the Jaguars.
He was in the league as of last year, but obviously did not live up to the hype because he was very highly hyped first round type player. Thoughts, concerns?
None of them hold a candle to Marvin Harrison if Marvin Harrison Sr. had a really, really tall son. But no, I think that the AJ Green comparison is the one that you hear most frequently. I know you put it as your high-end comp. I think it's just the comp. The more and more I try to parse how I feel about Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors, because I like Malik Neighbors a ton. He is so good. And to me, there's no question that Marvin Harrison will be my wide receiver 1. And the reason, I'm trying to figure out why do I feel this way about it? I keep coming back to the fact it's just I struggle so much to find a way that Marvin Harrison misses. It's just for a guy of this size to be this technically refined, to separate this well against this variety of coverages, to catch the ball as easily away from his frame, adjust, get low to the ball, get high to the ball. It's just there's so much he does well. And that was always the thing with AJ Green. Is on AJ Green, people would be like, oh, he's tall. Look at him. He's really big. But no, watch AJ Green, dude. He does everything perfectly. And so I think that comping him to a X top 5 pick in AJ Green, a guy who went to multiple Pro Bowls, who had all pro performances, I think it's legitimately fair to set those expectations for Marvin Harrison.
Is the issue with it some of the reasons why people are knocking Marvin Harrison down a little bit is Ben, what you just said. I can't imagine him missing. And then DK, even you saying my high-end comp is AJ Green. I think there are people out there who would say your high-end comp's AJ Green. Isn't the high-end comp for Rome Odunze Devontae Adams, who might be better than AJ Green career-wise, or you'd rather have than AJ Green? Is the issue with Marvin Harrison is that while his ceiling is while his floor is incredibly high, is his ceiling as high as the other guys in this draft as well?
So my response to that would be when I use comps, I'm trying to describe play style and role. I'm trying less to describe
exact stats,
how many Pro Bowls they're going to have, how many All Pros they're going to have, right? Comps is more to be hey, do you remember how this guy used to play in the league? Remember how AJ used to play? That's how Marvin Harrison is going to be able to play. That's the sort of role he's going to be able to fill. Because that's the thing is play style is kind of concrete. A tiger doesn't change his stripes. How you are is how you are. How you play is how you play. You can be better or worse within that play style, but it kind of just is the role that you have. I think another guy that I sometimes use to kind of illustrate what I think about Marvin Harrison Jr. and how he's going to be used is Larry Fitzgerald, who I've also used Fitz for Rome as well. But if you think about Fitzgerald, it's Fitzgerald was this big body. He was this tall guy, but he was running separation routes, middle of the field, out of the slot. That's the sort of stuff you can do with Marvin. So I'm using the name to describe the role. Now, obviously, when you start using these names, these are really, really successful receivers. You are generating a projection of having a high ceiling, but that makes sense for the top guys, right? We're going to get to the 12th receiver we do today, Xavier Legette, and I'm going to walk out and say AJ Brown. Not because I think he's going to have an AJ Brown level, ascendance top 5 receiver, because that's the sort of role that he's going to fill. If that makes sense.
Nothing drives DK crazier than when he's like, yeah, Roma Dunze reminds me of Devontae Adams. And you're like, oh, so Roma Dunze is going to be as good as Devontae Adams? And you're like, that's not what I said. Instant trigger for DK.
We had a very long, drawn-out discussion of what we were going to say when we when I first started doing the draft guide for the Ringer. It was like, what are we going to say? Pro comp? Whatever. We agonized over the wording. And we chose shades of exactly because it's not a fucking 1-to-1 comp. We're not like saying this guy's going to be this player.
I'm just trying to get at the core of why people are nervous about Marvin Harrison Jr. That's
because DK says he'll exactly be
too
AJ
much time
Green,
on their hands
genetically.
I'll tell you why. because Marvin Harrison's sophomore season was better than his junior season. And so people just, you were telling me how great Marvin Harrison Jr. was all last year. You're telling me already was 16 months ago. Well, why didn't he produce any better? Because Kyle McCord's not good, dude. What do you want from me?
I was going to say, but this is the same knock on Drake May. Who cares? He did it once, and then his teammates got worse. Why do we
did
care?
it a year younger? Like, that's good news, my G. Marvin's going to be good, man. I promise you.
I love that. This is probably going to be 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks of the draft year. And the Chargers are just going to be sitting there essentially with the first pick in the draft because they wouldn't have taken a quarterback anyway. And Marvin Harrison Jr. might
unless JJ fell. If JJ fell, who knows? Maybe.
Right.
John Harbaugh is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen.
Then they're shipping off Herbert. But Marvin Harrison Jr. might just fall and land on the Chargers with Justin Herbert and everything's wonderful.
From your lips to Chargers fans' prayers, man. I mean, they are hoping.